I'm Howard Gardner. I teach psychology at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. I'm a scholar, researcher, and writer, and I've been doing that for half a century. And usually, as a scholar and researcher, things are pretty gradual. You don't have dramatic events that happen in your life. You can work on a project for years before you write about it and summarize it. But sometimes something will happen to you that's much more climactic and much more cataclysmic. And in 1993, I received a letter from a colleague in Australia. I didn't really know this person. And he said, you know, your ideas are being used in Australia and you're not going to like the way that they're being used. So I said, well, I'll tell you more. This was in the days of email, but if there were attachments, I didn't know how to handle them. So I had my colleague send me a pile of papers literally this high. And he was absolutely right. The more I read, the less I liked. And finally, I arrived at what I now call the smoking gun. So what was this communication? I'd become well known for a theory called the theory of multiple intelligences, which is a theory that is easy to summarize quickly. You say that rather than there being a single intelligence, every human being has a number of different intelligences, and you can be strong, say, in musical intelligence, but not in spatial intelligence, or you can be strong in personal intelligences, but not in linguistic intelligence. So that's the gist of the theory, and it was used by many educators I learned around the world. But what was happening in Australia, and I don't question the motivation, is they had a curriculum where they listed all the racial and ethnic groups in Australia, in this particular state, and which intelligences they had and which ones they lacked. And I said, oh my God, this is completely pseudoscience. There isn't a bit of evidence for it. And unlike some of the other uses of MI theory, it isn't just innocuous. It could be quite harmful because a teacher could say, well, you are a member of this Aboriginal group, so that means you think this way and not that way, or vice versa. So I did something I hadn't done before. I went on television in Australia. I said, this is pseudoscience. There's no evidence for it, and it should be stopped. I also wrote a paper, which is my most quoted paper, called Reflections on Multiple Intelligences, Myths and Realities. And of course, this application was a myth. But the reason this was so transformational for me is I said to myself, you know, you're a scholar, you produce ideas. You used to think that that was where your job ended. But now you have to realize, Howard, that you have a responsibility. And if you produce ideas which go viral, so to speak, you're responsible to see whether or not they're used well, because if you don't take responsibility, who will? This caused a career change. After having been primarily a researcher of cognition, I became interested in what it meant to use your mind, to use your skills in an ethical way, in a responsible way, in what I would call a good way. And this launched something called initially the Good Work Project, and now the Good Project, which I've been carrying out over 20 years with many people, chief among them my psychologist colleagues, Bill Damon and Mike Csikszentmihalyi. And we were a good combination because I was interested primarily in thinking and cognition and intelligence. Mihai was interested primarily in motivation, in the psychological state we call flow, and Bill Damon was a student of morality and ethics, and particularly interested in what it means to have a sense of purpose. So for many years we have been studying good work, and we've combined, so to speak, thoughts about intelligence, thoughts about flow, and thoughts about a sense of purpose. And we now talk about the 3 E's of good work: excellence, engagement, and ethics. And the triple helix, you'll know what a double helix is. It's DNA, it's the heredity of human beings. But excellence, engagement, and ethics is ENA. It's the ENA of what it means to be a good worker, a good citizen, and a good person. So with many colleagues, I've been studying how to take our abilities and our motivation, which can be varied, and to put it to good uses. And we've created a toolkit called the Good Work Toolkit, and we have a very active website called The Good Project. And if you're interested not just in having intellect or wit, but putting it into a good use, go to thegoodproject.org and keep in touch with us.